In a dramatic shift reshaping the global economy, Donald Trump's return to power in 2025 has launched what many call economic wrestling, World Championship Edition. Trump implemented sweeping tariffs of 10 to 20% on foreign imports, declaring America's done being everyone's favorite piggy bank. He claimed companies are lining up to invest in America, projecting $7 trillion in investments. China's response was immediate and severe, matching Trump's tariffs exactly. Beijing then announced strict controls on rare earth metals exports, critical for technology manufacturing, sending Silicon Valley into panic. China also filed a World Trade Organization complaint, accusing the U.S. of destroying decades of international trade frameworks. In an unexpected development, Canada began shifting toward China's sphere of influence, reconsidering its military procurement strategies away from U.S. contractors. This signals a major change in North American relations. The European Union reacted with outrage to Trump's 20% tariffs on their exports, threatening immediate retaliation. This showed that even traditional allies aren't spared from the economic confrontation. The effects have been dramatic. Wall Street experienced extreme volatility as traders struggled to adapt to the new reality. Tech companies, heavily reliant on Chinese rare earth metals, saw their stocks plummet, while analysts rushed to update earnings forecasts. This represents more than a trade dispute. It's a complete reshaping of global economic relationships. The key question isn't about winners, but about the extent of damage before someone yields. As one Wall Street veteran noted, Trump's playing economic chicken with the entire world, and nobody's steering wheel has an airbag. In a dramatic turn, French President Emmanuel Macron has called for a freeze on European investments in the United States, signaling a major escalation in the ongoing trade war. This isn't small change. We're talking billions of euros in suspended investments across the Atlantic. As European leaders rally behind Macron's stance, China has proposed an alliance with Europe against what they're calling a common adversary. Chinese Deputy Trade Minister Lin, speaking with Hungarian officials, stated, "We stand ready to join forces with Europe in this economic struggle." Chinese media has taken a direct approach, labeling the United States as a global economic aggressor and accusing the White House of intimidation tactics. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, in the White House Rose Garden, delivered another characteristic performance, accusing the European Union of robbing poor America. "They're tough traders," Trump declared. "You think they're nice with their baguettes and cheese? They're actually fleecing us." Trade statistics do show a significant trade surplus in Europe's favor, though economists argue this hardly constitutes unfair practice. European markets have responded with concerning declines, with indices dropping as EU leaders scramble to formulate a response. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez called the tariffs catastrophic for millions on both sides, while German Chancellor Olaf Scholz denounced Trump's actions as a slap in the face to the global trading system. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen warned, "The EU stands ready to respond," suggesting potential countermeasures against key U.S. sectors. The tech industry has been put on notice for possible targeted retaliation. As markets continue their downward spiral, this trade conflict shows no signs of de-escalation, with both sides digging in for what could become a prolonged economic standoff. In a dramatic shift of global military alliances, Canada's bold move away from U.S. defense contracts signals a broader NATO realignment. Prime Minister Mark Carney's announcement could reshape North American defense relationships. The story centers on Canada's potential withdrawal from a $19 billion F-35 fighter jet contract with the United States. Despite receiving 16 aircraft, Ottawa is exploring a $60 billion alternative deal with France, following Donald Trump's aggressive trade policies after his re-election. "We can no longer rely on anyone else, even the United States," Carney stated, reflecting growing skepticism about American reliability. This sentiment echoes across NATO, with Portugal already abandoning F-35 plans. European leaders are taking a measured approach to trade tensions. Ireland's Michael Martin and Italy's Giorgia Meloni advocate for careful analysis, rather than knee-jerk reactions to U.S. tariffs. However, concerns are mounting about Trump's new automotive tariffs implemented on April 3rd. The situation has prompted unprecedented military spending across Europe. Canada's response has been particularly aggressive, investing billions in nuclear submarines, fighters, and radar systems, all without U.S. involvement. Defense Minister Bill Blair is exploring European alternatives, while NATO members watch closely. The timing is crucial, with Canadian elections approaching on April 28. Carney's strategy includes plans for domestic military production, a move that could alter North American defense dynamics. Trump's approach to foreign policy has pushed traditional allies to reevaluate their dependencies. The question now isn't just about fighter jets. It's about the future of Western military cooperation. As markets digest these developments, the implications for global trade and defense partnerships remain uncertain. With Canada potentially leading a pivot away from U.S. military hardware, other NATO members may follow suit, creating a new paradigm in defense procurement. In an unprecedented diplomatic spectacle, former President Donald Trump's re-election in 2025 has led to increasingly bizarre tensions with America's northern neighbor. What began as economic friction has evolved into what analysts are calling diplomatic theater of the absurd. The situation reached its peak during a December meeting at Mar-a-Lago, where Trump stunned attendees by suggesting to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that Canada could avoid all these tariffs by simply becoming the 51st state. Trump even referred to Trudeau as Governor Trudeau of the great state of Canada. The situation escalated when Trump took to Truth Social, declaring Canadians' dream of being part of the U.S., citing lower taxes, better health care, and a stronger economy. He posted an image of Wayne Gretzky wrapped in the American flag with the caption, "Governor? Why not?" By January 2025, what started as jest transformed into policy statements. Trump announced plans for an economic annexation of Canada, justifying it with claims about Canadian dependency on U.S. markets. He shared a map showing both nations merged under the American flag with the caption, "O Canada, now, our Canada." The situation deteriorated on February 1st, when Trump imposed a 25% tariff on all Canadian goods, citing national security concerns, drug trafficking, and evil northern winds. At a North Carolina rally, he elaborated, "If Canada becomes the 51st state, borders disappear, tariffs vanish, taxes drop, and healthcare improves automatically." Meanwhile, Canada has been pivoting towards the European Union, particularly in energy policy. The EU, eager to diversify its energy sources, has shown increasing interest in Canadian LNG exports. While the U.S. currently holds advantages in infrastructure and geographic proximity to European markets, Canada sees an opportunity to establish itself as a major player in global energy markets. Industry analysts note that while the U.S. maintains superiority in export terminals, pipelines, and port facilities, the question remains, will Europeans pay a premium for freedom gas with a maple flavor? Here's a 1875-character news piece based on the provided content. In a shocking escalation of trade tensions, Prime Minister Trudeau's fierce response to Trump's provocative statements has set the stage for what analysts are calling the Great North American Trade War. Trudeau vowed to protect Canadian sovereignty, like a mother bear protects her cubs, following Trump's controversial Super Bowl weekend remarks, suggesting Canada could become another U.S. state. By March 2025, Trump's aggressive tariff policy hit full stride, sending shockwaves through global markets. China, America's largest trade partner, faced a staggering 34% tariff rate. Other major economies weren't spared, the EU at 20%, Japan at 24%, and South Korea at 25%. Vietnam received the harshest treatment with a crushing 46% rate, while India, Taiwan, and Bangladesh faced 26%, 32%, and 37% respectively. The U.S.-Canada relationship, traditionally as inseparable as bread and butter, faces unprecedented strain. Daily cross-border trade averages $2.5 billion, with 75% of Canadian exports destined for American markets. The stakes are particularly high in energy and automotive sectors. Nearly 3.8 million barrels of oil cross the border daily, while auto parts and vehicle trade amounts to $65 billion annually. This interdependence cuts both ways. The U.S. relies heavily on Canadian resources, with 60% of American crude oil imports and 10% of electricity coming from their northern neighbor. States like New York and Michigan are particularly vulnerable to any disruption in power supply. Economic experts warn that Trump's tariff strategy could backfire spectacularly. While Washington envisions a renaissance of domestic manufacturing, critics point to inevitable price increases and inflation. The automotive industry faces potential paralysis, with assembly lines at risk of shutdown and vehicle prices potentially skyrocketing to the cost of Toronto real estate. As one analyst noted, Trump is simultaneously playing director, pyrotechnician, and leading actor in this economic drama, all while wearing his signature red cap. The consequences of this trade war threaten to reshape North American economic relations for generations to come. In a dramatic shift in North American trade relations, the United States finds itself increasingly isolated as Canada pivots towards China, marking a significant transformation in global economic alliances. The situation extends beyond oil and gas disputes. The American automotive industry, despite its Made in USA badges, relies heavily on Canadian parts. A walk through any U.S. supermarket shows that half of the wheat, fish, dairy products, and vegetables come from our northern neighbor. If trade with Canada were disrupted, we could see empty shelves while car prices could skyrocket to the level of luxury apartments. Canada is the primary supplier of aluminum and steel, essential materials for infrastructure, aviation, and defense industries. The implementation of tariffs on these vital resources effectively amounts to shooting ourselves in both feet. In this global reshuffling, while Washington pushes away traditional allies, China extends a welcoming hand. Recently elected Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced a massive deal with China, redirecting oil, minerals, and agricultural products eastward in exchange for Chinese industrial investments. While some applaud these tariffs, believing they protect domestic producers and combat globalization demons, the practical outcomes prove otherwise. Other nations respond with their own tariffs, leading to economic isolation. Beijing has secured a significant victory by signing major LNG contracts with Canadian companies. ARC Resources alone has agreed to supply 155 million tons of LNG annually to ExxonMobil Asia Pacific, demonstrating Canada's commitment to its new Eastern Partnership. As Trump continues his aggressive stance, Canada isn't merely a victim. It's actively reorienting its economic future. China's strategic patience has paid off, fundamentally altering North American trade dynamics and reshaping global economic power structures for decades to come. Breaking news. Trump's trade war wreaks havoc on American economy. In a stunning development shaking global trade, President Trump's aggressive tariff policies are backfiring on American businesses and consumers. Economic analysts report devastating impacts across multiple sectors, with automotive and agriculture bearing the brunt of these protectionist measures. Industry experts warn of a $10,000 to $20,000 price increase on new vehicles, pricing many Americans out of the market. What was meant to protect American business is actually strangling it, says Mark Thompson, senior economic analyst at MDS Analytics. The agricultural sector faces severe disruption. China, previously the largest consumer of American soybeans, corn, and pork, has reduced purchases while implementing retaliatory tariffs. The federal government has intervened with a $10 billion emergency aid package, with $7.7 billion for soybean producers. Europe is capitalizing on America's misfortune, with pork exports to China surging by 35%. Steel and aluminum prices have skyrocketed, creating a domino effect across construction and manufacturing sectors. American factories struggle with capacity constraints and workforce shortages. Global markets are responding with alarm. The S&P 500 futures have plunged 3%, while the Nikkei 225 has dropped 2%. The dollar has hit a 6-month low, prompting Deutsche Bank to warn of a potential currency crisis. JP Morgan's analysis suggests that if G20 nations implement reciprocal tariffs, global trade could contract by 5%, the most severe decline since 2008. World GDP is projected to fall by 1.4%. Investors are increasingly looking to Beijing for stability. The Chinese yuan is emerging as a potential safe haven currency, marking a reversal in global financial dynamics. As Washington tightens restrictions, China is positioning itself to fill the economic vacuum created by America's isolationist policies. Breaking news. Global trade war reshapes international alliances. As tensions escalate in the trade conflict, American manufacturers remain divided over Trump's aggressive tariff policies. While some support these protectionist measures, agricultural producers and tech industry leaders view them with growing alarm. The National Manufacturers Association maintains a cautious stance, acknowledging potential benefits while expressing concerns. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce calls the move economic suicide, warning of devastating consequences. The repercussions are visible. Canada is pivoting towards China in an unprecedented diplomatic shift. European nations speak openly about independence from U.S. influence. China methodically collects the pieces Trump scatters across the global economic chessboard. We're witnessing a geopolitical revolution. The world enters an era where protectionism becomes the new normal. Prices are expected to surge, logistics systems face potential collapse, and diplomats negotiate mounting debts between nations. The U.S. faces a critical juncture. These policies could either strengthen domestic industries or destroy them. It's a high-stakes gamble with no clear outcome. The trade war is our new reality, with Americans attempting to reclaim their global position in a changed world. Markets are experiencing turbulence, affecting everyone. The most significant shift is geopolitical. Old alliances crumble while new ones form. The dollar's dominance wanes as traditional partnerships dissolve and unexpected coalitions emerge. Experts predict this situation will intensify. The old world order is fading, and we're watching history unfold. This isn't just about trade. It's about the fundamental restructuring of global power dynamics. This is just the beginning of a new chapter in international relations. The next moves in this global chess game will be even more dramatic and consequential than what we've seen so far.